Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cadisen C8210. This watch is available from cadisen.net for $107 which is €103. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard watch box, which is protected by this white cardboard outer sleeve you remove. And this is the watch box. On the lid, it's branded with the Cadisen logo in silver. Has a flap which is attracted to the base by a magnet, and inside we have a piece of foam. And the watch sits in a foam cutout panel, which does a good job of protecting it in shipping from any damage. So although basic, it does suffice, and I think it's acceptable for a low tier piece at this price point, €103, to be using a cardboard watch box. With regards to the items, this is the warranty card, and as you can see, inside there's space to fill in the date of purchase, the reference number of the piece, and the dealer signature. Now there's also a table you can fill in the maintenance record of the piece. This details the terms and conditions of the warranty, and I'm pleased to report it's covered by a 12-month international guarantee. You also get this owner's instruction manual in the form of a fold-out leaflet, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement use, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic. You also get this Cadisen branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. And lastly, you also get this 1.6mm flathead screwdriver for resizing the screw pin links in the oyster style bracelet. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, the Cadisen C8210 is clearly an homage to the Rolex Yacht-Master, a watch I have previously reviewed on my channel. So very similar proportions to the Yacht-Master. We have a 40mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48.3mm, a thickness of 12.4mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the flip-lock clasp. The flip-lock clasp is a glide lock style clasp, which I'll show you. So the body is engraved longitudinally with the Cadisen logo to a good standard, beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the body, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished Mercedes handset and the silver mirror polished applied indices. So it follows the same classic dial layout as the Rolex Maxi dial as used in the Rolex Yacht-Master, which this is an homage to. The proportions of the indices are correct. However, I think the Mercedes handset is undersized. If you look at the Mercedes hour hand, you can see it looks underproportioned. It looks slightly small. Also, the minute hand is slightly short. The tip of it doesn't extend all the way to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring, and also it looks too slender. So they could do it enlarging the proportion of the Mercedes hour hand and also the pencil minute hand. Same applies to the contrasting red second hand, which of course looks like the Yacht-Master's red second hand, because the tip of the second hand doesn't quite extend to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring. It's slightly too short. So the hand size, the hand proportions are too small for this dial size, so they need to be scaled up. Now with regards to the dial, it's very well printed. Sunburst finished as per the Yacht-Master, so it's got a nice navy blue tone to it, and it also changes to a lighter blue, which is like electric blue when you tilt the piece at an oblique angle. So the sunburst finishing to the dial is very good. The quality of the printing is also very good. However, if you look at the 6 o'clock position, I think there's too much text. So just bear with me, I'm going to move the minute hand out of the way so you can see it better. So, if you look at the red text at 6 o'clock, you can see they've printed Neptune series. Now, I appreciate they're looking for two words to look similar to Yacht-Master as per the Rolex Yacht-Master, but I think they should have just deleted it and printed automatic in red, because underneath Neptune series, they've printed water resistant 100 meter/330 feet. It's a given that this piece is water resistant, and it's a given that the 100 meters/330 feet refers to that. So we don't need to have water resistant in Arial font in capitals printed beneath Neptune series. They simply could have printed automatic in red and then had the water resistance rating beneath it in white, 2 lines of text. It would clean up the dial because it looks too busy and cluttered with too much unnecessary specification. Neptune series really doesn't fit this. This is a Yacht-Master Homage, not a dive piece, so Neptune series isn't appropriate. But I appreciate they're trying to give the look, the aesthetic of a Yacht-Master with the 3 lines of text. So, white minute ticks on the chaptering are printed well, nice high definition printing, the font isn't too thick on the Cadisen and automatic at 12 o'clock, and the logo. So quality of the printing is good, but just too much of the text on the 6 o'clock position. Now, a negative I want you to be aware of, the Cyclops magnifier. It's 1.5 times magnification. Now, if you look at the date complication, you can see we're now on the 5th of the month, and the font is good. The black Arabic numeral on the white date wheel contrasts very well. So the legibility is good, the alignment is correct. The Arabic numerals aren't too far to the left or the right on the date wheel, the alignment is right, and also the alignment of the Cyclops magnifier over the date window is correct. But it is only 1.5 times magnification. On a Rolex Yacht-Master it is 2.5 times, and the lack of magnification is notable because it doesn't really enhance the legibility or the clarity of the date complication. So they really need to delete this 1.5 times magnification Cyclops and upgrade it to a 2.5 times because that would further enhance the piece. The bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel and it's scalloped finish to a mirror polish finish, which is good. And they've used a stainless steel bezel insert, which is meant to look like the Rolex Yacht-Master relief bezel, which is made from platinum. So matte blasted effect to the background, and then the Arabic numerals, the minute ticks and triangle at 12 o'clock are all mirror polished as per the Rolex Yacht-Master, which has a platinum bezel insert set into a oyster steel bezel. So very aesthetically pleasing. It does look very similar to the Yacht-Master bezel, and the matte blasting background is done very well, and also the quality of the mirror polishing to the relief bezel, the Arabic numerals, the minute ticks, and also the triangle at 12 o'clock are all done very well. The only notable difference is this is a 120 click unidirectional bezel as per a dive piece, but on the Yacht-Master it has a bidirectional bezel. But of course at this price point one isn't going to get a bidirectional bezel. One has to be realistic about the cost-cutting measures. Now, with regards to the case finishing, it's done very well, and I want to give due credit to Cadisen here because this is a low-tip piece costing only €103, but the case finishing is actually very good. Brush satin finishing to the tops of the lugs has a good luster to it. Nice, crisp, sharp edges which mark the transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks. The flanks of the case are mirror polished to a good standard. And on the crown guard side, the crown guards are correctly proportioned. They're also mirror polished very well. No sharp edges, no burrs. The tips of the lugs have been deburred very well. And the undercut to the flanks on both the crown guard side and the left-hand flank, they do not have any sharp edges. So the quality of the case finishing in terms of the brush satin finishing and the mirror polishing and the deburring are all very good. No sharp edges whatsoever. One detail I like about it, and they deserve credit for it because at this price point it is unusual, is the Rehort is stainless steel and it's laser engraved as per the Rolex Yacht-Master. We have Cadisen repeated all the way around it, 360 degrees. And the quality of the laser engraving to the Rehort is actually very good. It's very high definition. Now, laser engraving a Rehort does add significant production cost, and they deserve credit for doing this at €103. It is very unusual to see it done this well at this price point. So quality of the laser engraving is good, and aesthetically it does look similar to a Yacht-Master. The other thing I like about it is the Rehort isn't too deep, which is often the case with NH35A powered pieces. They have a very deep Rehort, but this one is actually reasonably shallow, and the dial doesn't sit too deep away from the underside of the flat sapphire crystal, so the legibility and the clarity is good, and I like that it hasn't got a very deep Rehort. It looks aesthetically better. Now, with regards to the clasp, it's a glide lock style clasp, and this is a pleasant surprise. I'll show you the interior first. As you can see, mirror polished throughout as per a Rolex Yacht-Master clasp. Now, this is interesting because the Yacht-Master doesn't actually have a glide lock clasp as per the Submariner date. It just has a clasp which has a 5mm EasyLink style extension. But Cadisen have used a glide lock style clasp as per the Submariner date. Now, mirror polishing is very good to the top side, underside and flanks. It's nicely mirror polished. No sharp edges to the flanks. The top edge and the lower edge are deburred very well. It doesn't have any sharp corners to the centre section of it, which is very good. So let's check the hinge pins. Now, unfortunately, the left-hand hinge pin has significant play in it. Longitudinal, lateral side-to-side play, up and down play, play in every single direction. And it's significant, as you can see. Now, it does make a clicking noise, so it rattles. Let's check the centre pin. Again, significant play. Lateral side-to-side play, longitudinal play, play in every single direction. Let's check the right-hand hinge pin. Very bad. As you can see, the tolerances are poor. And this is simply due to the holes being drilled too large, or alternatively the pin, which is riveted at each end, being too thin for the hole. And you get this sloppy fit, as you can see. Lateral side-to-side play, significant longitudinal play, up and down play, play in every single direction. And it is a lot of play. Look at the amount of wobble. Dreadful. So unfortunately, all three hinge pins, left, centre and right, all have play. And the cumulative effect of that is, as you can see, the bracelet, the clasp rattles, and it is noticeable. And my concern about this is the durability long term. How long is this going to last before one of these riveted pins shears? Because the problem with play is it puts the pin into excess shear load. And the pin can only take so much excess shear load before eventually it fails. Either the pin snaps, it breaks, or alternatively the riveted ends, the rivets come off. And the problem with the elongated holes is the rivets eventually wear off and then the pin comes out, or it just breaks because of the shear load. And especially with this right-hand one, my concern is the durability of that. How many times is that going to open and close before it eventually snaps? So room for refinement. Now, on a positive note, this is something that is impressive, and I want to give due credit to Cadisen here, because it's very unusual to see a glide lock style clasp at this price point in the low tier. We're looking at a €103 piece. To get a glide lock style clasp is impressive. This is something that Pagani Design are not using. For example, on a similar price point piece, the PD1661, which is €80, but very close to the €103 of this piece. This has a glide lock style clasp which is better, so let's test it out. Nice positive click, so it deploys very well. Now, it slides up and down smoothly. Of course, it's not as refined and smooth as a Rolex glide lock, which uses Teflon pads on the sliders. This is just 316L grade stainless steel sliding against the friction of 316L grade stainless steel. But it is reasonably smooth. Now, it does adjust very well. It snaps in with a nice positive click, which I'll show you. So we're now on the minimum, and it clicks out with a nice positive click. And then you can slide it out to the maximum extension, and I'll snap it in again, nice positive click. So it clicks in and out very well. It's actually surprisingly good. Now, the finishing, of course, isn't anything like as good as a Rolex glide lock, but one has to expect some cost-cutting measures at €103. The point is that it clicks out and clicks in well. Now, of course, there is some play in it, as one would expect. The tolerances aren't as tight as a Rolex glide lock. You can see we've got a significant wobble there, okay? So it is sloppy. Lateral side-to-side play, longitudinal play, up and down play. So it does rattle, but however, in terms of on-the-fly adjustment, it's good because there is a lot of adjustment, as you can see. There are a lot of clicks to the glide lock style mechanism. So plenty of grooves in it. And this is good because in the absence of half links in the oyster style bracelet, sometimes adding or subtracting a full oyster style link isn't enough to get the correct fit. You can be in between link sizes, so you need a half link. This is a good alternative. And the other thing is, if your wrist expands in warmer weather or when you are active, it's good to have this on the fly adjustment with a glide lock style clasp. So it's good to see this at this price point, and I think Cadisen deserve credit, because they could have just used a Pagani Design style flip lock clasp with the 3 micro adjustment dimples inside, which are difficult to adjust, but this glide lock style clasp actually works well. So I'll show you the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. The centre section is sterile, longitudinally brushed satin finish to a good standard. Feels nice and smooth. The circumference is mirror polished, so it does look very similar to a Rolex Yacht-Master caseback. Then we have a coin edge finish to it, no sharp edges to the teeth of the coin edge finishing, so it's very good. Does visually give the aesthetic of a Yacht-Master sterile caseback. Around the circumference is concentric CNC lathe tool machined and engraved with a specification and reference number of the piece. Quality of the engraving is good, no sharp edges to it. Now, the thing I like about it is it's got a nice flat centre section rather than being a high profile, deep bubble back caseback. And the benefit of this is it reduces the thickness of this piece below 13mm. This is only 12.4. 12.4 is actually very thin for an NH35A powered piece. Often they are 13mm plus. And I think they've made the correct decision because this is 100 metres rather than 200 metres water resistant. Now, bear in mind, this is an homage to the Yacht-Master, and the Yacht-Master itself is only 100 metres. It's not a dive piece as per the Submariner date, and therefore the water resistance is not 300 metres as per Submariner date. 100 metres for a Yacht-Master homage is perfectly acceptable. The benefit is that the caseback can be made thinner rather than being thick as per a 200 metre or 300 metre water resistant caseback. So it's good. Flat centre section means it sits flat and snug to the wrist. Sterile centre section means it's comfortable and smooth. It feels comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Finishing is good. The end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece and they're well finished. And the underside to the head of the piece, the brushed satin finishing is very good. The undercuts to the flanks on the crown guard side and also the left hand flank, they're deburred very well. And as you can see, they deserve credit here because if you look closely at the tips of the lugs, you can see they've chamfered them. And the benefit of the chamfering means that there's no sharp tips to the lugs, so they don't dig into the wrist. So the quality of the finishing to this case is very good. Similar to a Pagani design, PD1661 for example, there's no sharp edge to the undercut. So the quality of the deburring, the chamfering, the brushed satin finishing and the mirror polishing are all excellent at this price point. So Glidox style clasp works well, caseback looks good and it's well finished. Let's test the bezel execution. So as I've detailed, this has a relief bezel which has a stainless steel bezel insert to look like the Yacht-Master's platinum bezel insert, and the bezel itself is also 316L grade stainless steel. Nice scalloped teeth which are mirror polished. They do look similar to a Yacht-Master's platinum bezel on an oyster steel bezel itself. So good, doesn't have sharp teeth and deburred and chamfered very well. The bezel insert is also good. So let's test the execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel. Now, feels very light. In terms of resistance, it feels very similar to a Pagani design PD1661, which you'll all be familiar with. I think the bezel action is too light. Needs to be made firmer. The other thing is it doesn't feel smooth and even all the way through the 360 degrees. It feels rough and gritty. It doesn't feel like a smooth 120 click resistance. It gets tighter and it gets looser and then tighter again and so on. So unfortunately it feels too light but then also doesn't feel smooth. It just feels rough and gritty, so it's not a pleasant 120 click bezel. Lateral side to side play is significant. I'm just going to check it in 4 positions because when I level criticism at a brand I like to be consistent, I like to be fair rather than unfair, and I like to be unbiased. In all 4 positions we have significant lateral side-to-side play, so it's sloppy, poor quality control, poor build quality, tolerances are poor. They need to tighten it up. Let's check for back play. Now again, we've got significant back play. We're looking at half a click of back play. I'm going to check it in 4 positions to be consistent. Back play again. Half click of back play. So 4 positions all the way around the bezel. We've got back play in every single position. So it's poorly executed. Lastly, let's check the alignment. Right, so a 1 click before 12 o'clock. The next click should perfectly align it, but unfortunately, if you look at the mirror polished triangle on the relief bezel, you can see it's now slightly to the left of the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock index on the dial. So when I level criticism, I'm going to be fair and consistent. I'll check it 2 more times and we'll see does it underperform 3 out of 3 times. So we're now 1 click before. If we go to the next click, it should be aligned. No, slightly to the left. I'll check it a 3rd and final time. So we're 1 click before. Next one should be bang on 12. No, slightly to the left. So the triangle on the relief bezel is slightly to the left in terms of alignment, 3 out of 3 times. This is wholly unacceptable. I appreciate this is a low-tier piece. We're looking at €103 price point here. One has to be realistic and expect some QC defects and also some build quality and quality control issues. But bezel execution is a fundamental. They have to get it correct. So lateral side-to-side play, back play, the bezel misaligns, but then the other thing is the resistance doesn't feel even through the 360 degrees. It gets tighter and looser, and it feels rough and gritty. It's not a smooth 120 click bezel execution. Very poor. And it feels similar to the Pagani Design PD1661 Starbucks, which I recently compared to the Steel Dive SD1953. They were €80. They were less expensive, but the SD1953 actually had excellent bezel execution. So it is possible for a low-tier Chinese brand at the €80 price point to get it correct, as per Steel Dive with the SD1953. Pagani Design also had a very bad bezel execution with the PD1661. Same problem, too loose, lateral side-to-side play, back play, and also misalignment. So really, this is the main disappointment of the piece. Poor bezel execution. So let's test the screw-down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, nice chamfer to it, so no sharp edges to the tips of the coin edge teeth. Mirror polished domed cap to it, and as you can see, it's embossed with a Cadisen emblem to a good standard, so it's well finished and it looks good. I'm pleased to see they didn't use a sterile crown, which is unsigned, as a cost-cutting measure. The embossed logo looks good. Let's test the action. Now, it does feel smooth. It's not silky smooth. You can feel some friction. You can feel the resistance of the threading, the internal thread of the stainless steel crown rubbing against the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So you can feel the steel to steel friction. There's also some friction with the rubber O-rings, because there's one rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown tube, and the two rubber O-rings provide an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. So it feels smooth. It unscrews okay, but there's room for refinement. For example, on the Steel Dive SD1953, which is €80, that is silky smooth. It's a better screw down crown execution. So there is room for improvement. They could refine the quality control, the tolerances, and the build quality to get it silky smooth. So when it's unscrewed, you can manually wind the Seiko NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Medium resistance to it, feels nice and smooth to manually wind, and one can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, so it feels good. It's a pleasant movement to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication, but I'm just going to move the minute hand out of the way so you can see it better. Right, so pulling it out to the first click, we're now in the quick set date complication position. Nice positive clicks. You can see the Arabic numerals are the correct proportions. The font is nice and crisp. They've done good quality printing. The font of the Arabic numerals isn't too thick, it's not blurry, and the legibility of the black Arabic numerals on the white states wheel is good. I like the nice heavy clicks to the date complication. It's a characteristic of the NH35A. But however, it's just a shame that we've got 1.5 times magnification rather than 2.5 times, because as you can see, the magnification effect is negligible. It doesn't enhance or improve the legibility as per a 2.5 times magnification. So they really need to change the Cyclops magnifier, but the quick set complication works well. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting red second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second. Nice medium resistance to the gearing, feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and I really like the smoothness and the medium firm resistance to the gearing with the NH35A. Now, there is slight backplay. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there is some backplay. You have to take up some slack. The minute hand doesn't immediately respond when you rotate the crown. There is slight play. That's a characteristic of the NH35A you just have to live with. But it does take some getting used to. It's not an immediate response. But however, if you take up the backplay, it does work very well. Pushing it back in's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. So it works well. Let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup, so there is a good interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The meshing of the threads is good, the pickup is good. It does feel smooth, but not silky smooth. There is some friction. It's okay. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and we're now on the maximum extension of the glide lock style clasp. And you can see I can easily slide an index finger. I can actually slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. So this will fit a very large wrist of over 8 inches. This would actually fit up to a 9-inch wrist. So that's something to bear in mind. If you're a collector with a larger wrist of above 8 inches, this oyster style bracelet, which tapers from 20 to 16, has plenty of links. So no worries whatsoever. Bear in mind it's on the maximum extension on the glide lock clasp. Now, in terms of proportions, it's very good. 40mm head of the piece has the perfect taper on the bracelet. 20 to 16 is perfection personified. Perfect taper 20 down to 16 for a 40mm head of the piece, as per the Yacht-Master, which this is an homage to. Nice lug-to-lug measurements. 48.3 is close to perfection. You'll often hear me refer to this in my previous reviews, that 48 is the sweet spot. It is the perfect lug-to-lug measurement, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist, respectively. 48.3 is just a fraction above the sweet spot of 48, and you can really feel it's the perfect lug-to-lug measurement. So if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, this will fit. If you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, this will fit. 40 by 48.3 is excellent proportions. Above all else, the thing I like about the proportions of this piece is the thickness. This is only 12.4, which is very impressive for an NH35A powered piece. Often they're in excess of 13mm. Again, I often refer to the sweet spot as being 13mm, because 13mm means that a watch will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 12.4, this is 0.6mm below the sweet spot. It's nice and thin and low profile. Needless to say, it will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff. And you can notice the fact that it feels thinner because it doesn't have the characteristic bubble back stainless steel case back of 200 and 300 meter water resistant pieces. Yes, the negative is it's 100 meters, but nice flat case back means it's nice and snug to the wrist. Smaller gap underneath the tips of the curved lugs, and the undercut to the case is nice and close to the wrist. So it feels nice and low profile. It wraps around the wrist rather than sitting on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. Very aesthetically pleasing piece. It does look visually similar to a Yacht-Master with a sunburst dial, which changes from an electric blue in direct light to a navy blue. And also I like the contrast of the red second hand as per the Yacht-Master. It does add interest to it and the legibility is good. The matte bead blasted effect to the relief bezel is good. It does look like the platinum bezel used on the Yacht-Master, and the mirror polished relief Arabic numerals and minute ticks also catch the light. So good looking bezel, good looking sunburst dial, and the contrasting red hand also looks very nice. It's a good looking piece. The feel good factor is good. The comfort level is good. It feels very well balanced. However, there is a negative I want you to be aware of. It is a heavy piece. This is surprisingly heavy. It's 159 grams. But bear in mind, it does have a lot of extra links in the bracelet, so you're going to be removing a lot of links. Even I would remove 4 links from this bracelet with my large 8-inch wrist. But even so, removing links is going to bring it below the 150 gram sweet spot, but it does feel quite heavy. It's very well balanced. The bracelets and also the glide lock style clasp do balance the 40mm head of the piece very well. So proportions are good, the feel good factor is good, comfort level is good, feels very comfortable, no sharp edges to the bracelet articulates well, doesn't pull arm hairs. So let's look at the end links and the bracelet in detail, because I want to examine the quality, the build quality and quality control of it. So male end links. Now, unfortunately, I want to bring your attention to a negative, one of the main negatives of this piece. We've got a sloppy end link, as you can see. Lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play, and it's significant play. The problem is it rattles, and this is simply down to the hole in the centre link of the end link being drilled too large, or alternatively the pin being undersized. It should be an interference fit. It should have friction and be tight, but as you can see, the hole is too large or the pin is too undersized, and then we have this poor tolerance. So it rattles, it clicks, and it's got significant play in it in every direction. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down. Very poor quality control, poor build quality, poor tolerances. There is room for improvement. Unfortunately, that's not the only problem, because I'm pleased to see screw pins used rather than the cross-cutting measure of push pins, but every single one of the oyster style links with screw pins rattles, as you can see. And the cumulative effect of all that play is it rattles on wrist. It makes a clicking sound. Longitudinal, lateral, side-to-side play, up and down play in every single direction. Let's check the other side for continuity. So, articulates smoothly, which is good, but although it's not stiff, it doesn't kink. The problem is, look at the amount of play. Absolutely dreadful. And this is significant play. So, longitudinal play, lateral play, side-to-side play in every single direction. Very, very loose fit. And again, the problem with this is, as per the hinge pins, my concern is long-term durability. How long is it going to be before the excessive shear load on that pin causes it to fail? Because eventually they break. When you have an undersized pin in an oversized hole, what happens is the pin is under excess shear load, and eventually what happens is the pin shears, it snaps, because it just can't take the extra play, the extra shear load put on it. Dreadful. And again, we have significant longitudinal, lateral, side-to-side, up and down play in every single one of the screw pin links. So the bracelet is sloppy, it rattles, both the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side. On a positive note, the bracelet is finished well. In terms of the brush satin finishing does have a beautiful luster, which is good. It looks nice and fine. The grain finish is very good. The mirror polishing on the flanks is good. It's flawless. So the mirror polishing and the brush satin finishing is good. Doesn't pull arm hair, which is good, and there are no sharp edges. The top edge and the lower edge of the flanks is deburred to a good standard. So it doesn't scratch the wrist and it doesn't pull arm hairs, but it rattles and it's sloppy. So these are the negatives I want you to be aware of. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, initially it looks good. This uses BGW9 Super Luminova, and it is a pleasant surprise because at the €109 price point in the low tier, one could expect Luminova as per the Pagani design PD1661 at €80. BGW9 is good at €109, but however, unfortunately, we're looking at 3 to 4 layers. We're not looking at 5 to 6. The problem with 3 to 4 layers on the applied indices and the Mercedes handset is it's now going to fade and fade fast. And this really is a cost-cutting measure. If this had 5 to 6 layers, as per the Steel Dive SD1953, it would have excellent performance. The exciter would continue to glow incredibly brightly for a good length of time. When the cost-cutting measure of 3 to 4 layers is used, initially there's a bright burst from the exciter of white BGW9 glowing bright blue. But the problem is that then fades very quickly because the exciter only has 3 to 4 layers rather than the 5 to 6 optimum number of layers. And as you can see, the other negative is the Mercedes handset is under proportions. The hands are too small and they're slightly short, so that they don't allow for large plots, a large area of BGW9 to be applied. So the hands are slightly too small, and the other negative is not enough layers. Now it's beginning to fade, and it will continue as time goes on to fade very quickly. I would describe it as okay. Yes, it's better than using blue Luminova as per the Pagani design PD1661, which has poor performance, but this is not as good as on a Steel Dive SD1953, which uses 5 to 6 layers, and of course it's €80. It's much less expensive. This is 109. I would like to see Cadisen update this to using 5 to 6 layers and also enlarge the proportions of the Mercedes handset to allow for more area, more plots of BGW9 to be applied. So on a positive note, yes, it's good to see BGW9 used at €109, but it's disappointing to see 3 to 4 layers versus 5 to 6. It's glowing okay, and I think it's acceptable, but there is room for improvement. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So you'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A Automatic. It's been in service since 2011, and this is the made in Malaysia version. So it's reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. It has 24 joules and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and a quick set date complication, which works well as I've demonstrated. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. and the stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. This one has been regulated to +10, which is well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy. But however, +10 isn't very impressive. It is okay accuracy, but I think Cadisen could do better. It is possible to regulate the NH35A to much better than +10. For example, in 5 positions, they can be regulated to within ±5 seconds per day. So +10 is okay, but slightly fast. I would like to see Cadisen improve on the regulate the movements in 5 positions and get them to within ±5. But +10 from an NH35A is good enough. So, correct choice of movement for this piece at €103. So, last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, low tier piece, €103 price point. I'm going to declare it okay quality and okay value. It's a difficult piece to weigh up because there are some positives and there are some negatives. It has AR coating which works well, and it has BGW9 which works okay, but the negative is the bezel execution is very poor. Lots of play in it, and of course we've got back play and poor alignment. The screw down crown isn't silky smooth, but it's okay, it does feel smooth enough. The thickness I like. It's 12.4, which is impressive for a NH35A power piece. It's good to see screw pins used, and of course it is impressive to see a glide lock style clasp used at this price point. So that's a positive, although it does need some improvement with regards to the build quality and the tolerances, because we have play in the hinge pin. So positives and negatives all round, so therefore I'm going to say it's okay quality and okay value. One has to be realistic and expect some QC issues at this price point of €103. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the QC issues and also the shortcomings with regards to build quality. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Cadisen C8210. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.